So let's get started here. This is the IT service security class. All right, just to make sure you're all in the right room, make sure I'm in the right room. And for those of you who haven't ever met me before, I am Somya Ray. Okay. And my usual joke, first day of class, is I'm a professor by day, and by evening, I'm a superhero. I like to develop code, so that's my alter ego. All right. So, and I'm a professor here. Actually, this is such an old slide. This is two promotions ago. So, but I'm a professor here at this Institute of Service Science in the Management School here. Okay. Before we move on, I just want to kind of get a feel for everyone here. I think I recognized several of you here because you're ISS students, you're service science students, right? This table and that table. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. How about the rest of you? Which programs are you from?
I'm computer science.
Computer science. Okay, great. Welcome. ISA, ISA, computer science. What's the distinction between ISA and computer science? Nobody knows. Okay. I know a lot of people in computer science in Tsinghua are more like electrical engineering, though. They're more like hardware side.
We will do some EDA stuff.
Okay. All right.
Chip design.
Like chip design stuff, which is in other countries is part of a different program, but here it's computer science. ISA, I think, is entirely software application related, right? Yeah. Welcome. Hi. Sorry to put you on the spot. We're just getting to know each other. Which program are you from? From computer science? You should be sitting over here. I'm joking. I'm joking. You've got your colleague over here. Okay, great. So welcome. This class usually attracts students from, yes, computer science, ISA, service science, and sometimes the security program because of the name of the class, and sometimes other places as well. So welcome again to the IT service security class. Okay, so I want to today we're just going to introduce the class. Actually, most of the time we'll spend motivating the class. Well, why do we have this class? Why is it in a management school of all places? And what are we doing? Okay. Uh, However, before I go on, just to make sure there's no misunderstanding, um, there is a syllabus available. I think you should have been able to see it before you came, but I just want to make sure that the prerequisites are understood by everybody. This is a software development class, even though it's in a management school, and we are expecting that you have that you have fairly good software development experience, that you at least know one reasonably object-oriented language, okay? And you should know some basic web design, like just HTML, CSS. You should have taken some class on database design, and you should be kind of know what relational design looks like, what ERD SQL looks like. Look, if you don't know, your teammates might be able to help you along, but it's better that you do know, then you can contribute equally on everything. And last of all, I'm assuming you have some familiarity with Unix-based systems. Okay, so these are the things that you kind of need to know to take this class. It is an intensive software development course. It is not a management course. All right, so I just want to be clear about that. However, today I do want to talk about some of the softer side of security, just to kind of motivate why we're doing this class. Welcome. Oh, please take your shoes off and put it in the cabinet around the wall. Okay. Yeah, and then come in, please. Okay. All right. Okay, so and I'm going to come back to the syllabus a little bit later, but I just want to make sure everyone here understands understands this. Okay. All right. So I want to tell you what the class is about, but I want to first get your impression of what you think security is all about. Okay. So let me kind of start with a little question for you all. So imagine you are operating a Okay, ignore this. Ignore these words, okay? Don't look at them. Imagine you are operating a small e-commerce platform for a small company, relatively small company. Let's say 50 employees, and you've got your own little e-commerce shop going on, okay? So I'm just kind of curious, what do you think are issues that might threaten your IT system? Or you can tell me what are issues that you think customers are going to be concerned about. Either way, I just want to get a survey of what you think are security issues and how they might affect people. So give me some feedback. What do you think? What are some easy ones? Okay, so the customers will want to know what information are you storing about me, right? Okay. So you want to be the customer will expect you to be transparent about what information you're collecting, right? Okay, great. Okay, great. We're off to a start. Any others? Please. Authentication. So so that's from you're speaking now from the side of the company. How do I authenticate, make sure I'm talking to the right people? Correct? Yep. That's obviously going to be important because different customers coming in, you don't want them to see each other's, financial details and stuff like that. So you got to authenticate, make sure you're talking to the right people. Okay. There's another side to that. Is that purely this a concern of the company, or do you think consumers have an authentication concern?
Can see both ways.
So tell me the other way. The customer is the right person. Okay, but so do you think there's the other way around? There's no authentication issue, like the customer doesn't have authentication concerns? That's great. That's fine. That's great. Anybody else?
Customer want to make sure the website is their website.
Okay, so the customer wants to make sure this is the website. Have you ever had it? Have you ever had this? Okay, great. That's the word I'm looking for. So have you ever gotten an email and it's like, your Netflix credit card has expired. Please renew it immediately. And you're like, oh my God, can't live without Netflix. You're about to click that email button and you go, where does this link take me to? So you look at the link and it's like netflixcom.com or something like that, right? Or it's like something very close, but not quite, right? So I do believe actually that customers have an authentication concern. They want to know they're dealing with the right company at all times, not just when they type it into the website, into the URL, then they're quite certain they're going to the right place. But when they get emails or they're clicking on some marketing, they need to know, am I dealing with the real website? So I think that concern, am I talking to a real person, is exists on both sides. Okay, so great. So authentication is an issue from both sides. Anything else? So we had what data is the company collecting? How does the company know that the customer is the right person? How does the customer know the company is the real company? Okay. Anything else? Are we done? It's going to be a very short semester. That's all we're concerned about. We'll be done in 2 weeks. Anything else? You're running an e-commerce shop. What else are you worried about in terms of security? Yeah, please. Sure. Maybe somebody's going to target your company. One example, as you said, outside attack. So one example could be a DOS attack, a denial of service attack. So that's when hackers send millions or billions or trillions of requests to your website and basically stop you from being able to serve anybody else, right? Why would somebody want to do that to a small e-commerce shop? Employee. Oh, so you've had some experience with this. Okay, got it. Or you've done it. Okay, so it's possible that somebody wants to do a denial of service attack on you. Any other outside attacks that could happen? Well, that's a very specific attack. What do you have in mind? Something else. Okay, how would they attack you? What kind of attack are you thinking about? Don't worry, you're in the right class. We'll be talking about this for one semester, so don't want to use up all the ideas, but what kind of attack are you thinking about that could somehow alter my service? Anybody? Yeah, please. Okay. Okay. So somebody might try to manipulate some information on my platform to give their products an advantage. Is that what you're saying? How would they get that data into my system? Any thoughts? Okay, so somebody could come in and flood the website with fake reviews. This is again part of an authentication concern, partly, because you want to make sure people, it's not just bots coming in, creating accounts and just, spamming reviews and, 5 star, 5 star, 1 star, 1 star, like something like that. Great. So that's another concern, right? Like you're dealing with real humans. Okay. Any other concerns? We'll be seeing some stories today, but I want to, what's that? Ransomware. So what is ransomware? Ask you for money. Like they come to your door and they ask you for money, or what do they do? Okay. Okay. So this is a malicious, it could be like a worm or an attack by a person that basically steals your database. Okay. Do you know what they do when they steal the database? Like how do they steal the database? They don't just put it in their pocket and walk away. What do they do? Any ideas?
Sell it.
They'd sell it, but how do they stop you from seeing it? That's one thing they often do. They actually encrypt your database and they tell you. So first of all, they have access to your database. How do they access your database? Okay, that's one issue. How do they access your database? But now that they've access to your database, they could encrypt your database against you, so you cannot read your own data. And they tell you, I'll send you the key as soon as you send me some Bitcoin or something like that. Okay, so that's ransomware. Now, let me ask you honestly, small e-commerce shop, 50 employees, is somebody going to hit you with ransomware? Do you think? You don't think so? What do you guys think? Yes, no? Maybe? Great, there's a third answer. Yes, no, maybe. All right. Anyone say yes? Probably going to happen? You think yes, probably going to happen? Great. Practicing. So let me start with this one, then I will go to PC Home. Don't want to use up all my this is an interesting story because I was, one time sitting around with my wife's family and they were asking me, "What do you teach?" I said, "I teach a security class." They said, "Oh, what is that about?" And I used the example of ransomware. I said, "Oh, sometimes it happens to a company where blah blah blah, and they take your database, blah blah blah." And then somebody at the table said, "Oh." This was an elementary school teacher who's in my extended family, and she's like, "Oh, that happened to my school." I said, "It happened to your school? This is a tiny little school in some tiny little road in Shinju." And I'm like, "Who did it?" They're like, "We don't know who did it." And I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, somebody locked up our database and they deleted the database and they said they have a copy of it. But they said all your students' records are with us. You have no information about who your students are, who your employees are, their attendance, their fees, nothing. You know nothing. All right. And pay us, and it was a nice big amount, or it's all gone forever." Okay. What do you think they did? Call the police? That's something that almost nobody does when ransomware hits them. Weird. Why do you think so? The police can do nothing. Police will be like, "Do you have the $1 million?" No. Why do you think most companies don't do that? Very few companies report a ransomware attack. It damages your reputation, right? Like your customers are going to find out. These school children's parents are going to find out, and they'll be like, "What? My little children's information is floating around on the internet because of you guys," so they don't tell anybody. So I asked her, "What did you do? What did your school do?" She said, "Well, they deleted everything. We don't have anything, so we are back to using paper now. We have to like go back and remember everything, and we're just back to a paper system now until we can get a new system." All right. So, why do you think somebody attacked a small, tiny little elementary school in Shinju? Big money? They were not targeted on purpose. These are not targeted attacks. This is just a web crawler that goes through the internet and hits everybody. They don't care who you are. So actually, they're not targeting big companies, surprisingly. They're targeting everybody. All right. So tiny little schools in Shinju are getting hit. Everyone's getting hit. All right. No one's talking about it because it's too embarrassing to admit it's happened. So this is the kind of attack that happens, right? So we've talked about your data, what's on your data. So one is a ransomware. But since they have already access to database, what are the other concerns you now have? Other than getting your data back? Changing the data. Oh, they may change your data. Yes, they may change your data. Why not? Okay, we're going to see a variety of those attacks over the semester. They may change your data. Give themselves an administrative privilege over your servers while they're at it, right? What else can they do?
Data leak.
Data leak. They can sell the data, right? Why would anyone? So you're a small e-commerce shop. Like, what data can they sell that's of use? Credit card information. Thank you. You think just like me. All right. Just show me the money. Okay. Credit card information. What else? Password. But that's the password to to my website. Who needs the password? Oh, yeah. The user's username and password, but why sell that? Because on that, all people can do with that. What can people do with your username and password?
Try to log into other websites.
Try to log into other websites. What other websites? What do you mean some users? Are you not one of them? Yeah, right. A lot of people just repeat their passwords in many places. So usernames and passwords are highly lucrative. It can get you access to, at the very least, social media. And then after social media to maybe, who knows, your bank, many other places. Okay. But let's just go with social media. Why would people want to use your username, password, and then try to log into Facebook as you? What are they going to do with that? They might want to steal your identity for some other scam they're pulling, right? This is going around. I mean, every month I see a post on Facebook saying, please do not accept any friend request from me. They stole my picture, my name, it's not me. And I say, who are you? All right. Yes, that's one reason, they might want to fake it. What else could they do with it other than just fake your identity and get to know more friends? Well, we'll find out. Okay, we'll find out. So these are all concerns. Anything else we're missing? So they may want to alter information. They may want to steal information, sell you information. I'm trying to think. Anything else we're missing? Okay. Okay. I think that's a pretty good list. That's a pretty good list. Okay. You should already be concerned now if you're a small web e-commerce shop. Okay. So let's categorize these concerns a little bit. Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, there's many ways to categorize different security threats, but I'll show you a simple one, a slightly dated, but a simple one. Okay, these are 6 dimensions of security risks that I want to talk about. And I think you guys have mentioned many of them. Let's see which you haven't mentioned. Okay. So certainly availability and performance. This is the denial of service and other things, just to make your service unavailable to other people or slow you down for some reason. It could be a competitor. Okay. Or it could be just somebody who is doing this. Again, it could be a kind of ransomware style attack where they're saying, we're going to bombard you, you pay us and we'll leave you alone. All right. That could happen. Okay. By the way, what would you do if this is happening to you? What would you do if somebody's doing a denial of service attack on you? You're a small e-commerce shop. You don't have like some hi-fi technical team to fight back. What would you do? Change your address. Okay. A firewall? I'm not sure that will help that much because they're just hitting your public infrastructure anyway, right? They're just targeting a denial of service attack will probably just target your website anyway. Just bombard you with, request support 80 anyway. Any thoughts? Yes, exactly right. So there's like content distribution networks that, like Cloudflare, who advertise regularly. We just thwarted a 1 trillion attack thing. So there's things like that. We'll discuss a little bit of those. Okay. We talked about authentication, right? So that we really nailed that one. Okay, authentication. Um, uh, Confidentiality, certainly we want the data that's on your database to remain confidential. What's going on? Oh, I remember now, this stupid class, this thing flickers all the time. All right. Maybe I should try a different HDMI cable. Maybe after the break, I'll try that. So sorry, this is going to flicker once in a while. Confidentiality, so this is another dimension. So availability, performance, authentication, confidentiality, which means keeping your information secret. Okay. Data integrity, that your data should not change. So somebody mentioned they may want to change your data, either using fake accounts. Actually, on a lot of websites, you don't even have to use a fake account. You can just get access to other people's data quite easily. Or they may somehow penetrate your database and change the data without you knowing. By the way, what would you do if somebody changed your data and they said, hey, uh, what would they do to an e-commerce shop? They might say, hey, I purchased this thing for 10 million NTD and I want to return it now. And you're like, you did what? And they're like, look in your database. There's a purchase for 10 million NTD. I just want to return it. Give me my money back now. What would you say? Are you sure that was a transaction you really did? How would you make sure it's a transaction you really did? You check your bank account. Okay, fine. But they'll say, well, it's gone from my bank account. I don't care if it's in your bank account, but it's not in my bank account. So I need my money back now. Okay. Yes, yes, right. I can check the transaction history, but if they had access to my database, they're going to put it in the transaction history, right? Like they could have, let's say they'd infiltrated my database and they had just added a transaction that never occurred. How would I know that it occurred or not? I mean, it's in my transaction history. Is there a way to know that it really happened? This is actually related to this issue of non-repudiation, which is that, after a transaction has taken place, neither side should be able to deny that it actually took place. So how to do that is another security concern. All right. So, and this is related to data integrity, but it's a very specific form of issue of data integrity. Okay. And the last one is authorization. Um, you might authenticate people and be like, this is the customer, but they may be doing things they're not supposed to be doing on your system once they're authenticated. How do you make sure that they're only doing the things that they are supposed to do? They're not accessing things that they're not supposed to do. How do you like control that flow? Okay, so these are 6 of the major concerns. If you're wondering where on earth I got it from, this is a rather dated paper from 2003. But I find this to be a fairly good list for the purposes of this class. Okay, but over the semester, I will introduce you to more up-to-date and slightly more technical criteria, and we'll discuss then if we're fulfilling those as well. Okay, but these are 6 basic dimensions of information security, and I think we covered a lot of them. Okay, a couple I had to clarify a little bit. Make sense? And this semester, we're going to be talking about how to create an information system that addresses these issues by and large. Okay, the one that probably I'll cover the least is this one. The reason is because this class is a software development course. It is not a network security class because there's excellent network security classes on campus already. This course is really for software developers to teach you how do you make a system that does all these things, not just have network infrastructure, but your code. Like, what do you do with your code to ensure all of these things? Okay, so this is for software engineers, okay, not network engineers. Okay, so these are the concerns we'll be trying to address this semester. Make sense? Okay. By the way, I think you walked in late. What program are you from? I ITM, Technology Management. Okay, all right. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So these are the things that we'll be covering this semester. Okay. Any questions about any of these? You're okay? Anything not on here that you wish was on here? Anything on here you wish was not on here? All right. Okay. So I'll say more about, a little bit more about what we're going to do this semester. But before we move on, let me just ask you a question. Okay. Should these be the first priority of your business? Should you start addressing these issues when you're beginning to develop your system? Yes, no, yes. We have a yes, we have a no. Fifi, was that a no? You don't think it's the first priority? First priority? Fight. Okay. uh, what were you saying? First priority? Not first priority? Other opinions over there? Not, is that a not first priority? Okay, it's like an auction. Not first, not first, not first, 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 not first, not first. Okay. Anybody else? Gentlemen over here, not first, not sure, not first, what to do. All right, okay. So let's talk about some of these kind of let's see some examples of some of these issues, and we'll come back to this question about when do you start thinking about security in a system. All right. Here's a story. This is a hospital in Los Angeles. Okay. And yes, ransomware attack. Tana, it not only hits small elementary schools in Taiwan, they also hit hospitals in Los Angeles. Why not, right? So, and that was a Twitter post about it, but here's a story about it. In what should be the best recommendation for backups ever in the history of computing, a Los Angeles hospital has been struck by ransomware, and they cannot access patient records, X-rays, and other important data. Okay, a hospital doesn't have this stuff. Hackers are using ransomware, which encrypts all the files in the network. They're asking for about $3.6 million in Bitcoin. That's not a small amount of money. This is not Taiwan dollar, this is a US dollar, okay? 3.6 million Taiwan dollar, here you go. All right. The hospital is currently unable to manage patient records, according to a local report. The president says the president of the hospital and CEO of the hospital says that the attack was random. The attack was random. Like that elementary school, they were not. Somebody was not like, who is this system? What are they made of? What do they look like? No, it was just a script. It was just a script that attacked them. Okay, the attacker doesn't even know that they got targeted because it's targeting everything on the internet. Okay, the attack was random, and the staff is currently taking notes and writing down records by hand. All right, so just an example of an attack. All right. What does this Twitter post say? This is a Twitter post by one of our former students. He's the one who brought this story to our attention. One would think that with so much sensitive information, they would have better security. All right. Okay, great. Oops, excuse me. Let's see another attack. This one from India. All right. This is Zomato. Have you guys heard of Zomato? Have you heard of Zomato? Okay, pretty big company. Pretty big company. Is it a unicorn? Do you know? Okay, all right. But let's see. So Zomato is a online restaurant search and discovery service in India. This is when they were beginning. This is a long time ago. This is 2015. It's almost 10 years ago, you know. So their online restaurant search for dining out, cafes, nightlife in India and 21 other countries. It has, at this time, it only had 62 million customers. Now I don't know how many they have, but we'll see in a moment. Okay. Here's the attack. This is the sophisticated attack that was conducted on them. You ready to hear how to attack a not so small company with tens of millions of users? So while creating an account, a user can store their phone number, address, date of birth, link, Instagram, etc. In one of the API calls, so they have a backend web API, they were reflecting the user data based on the browser ID parameter in the API request. So you contact the API, and at the end of the API, you say / and you give an ID number for the customer. Okay. Interestingly, changing the ID number sequentially. So somebody just said, okay, let me just contact. They can see their front end is contacting this API, and they say, hey, I notice this API has my user ID on it, and the user ID is a number. What about I just start going through all the possible numbers? Add 1, -1, add 2, add 3, add 4. Okay. Changing the ID number sequentially resulted in data leakage. You can see everyone's data if you just go through it and try different ID numbers. Okay. The data leak has also had Instagram access tokens, so they could see private photos on Instagram of respective Zomato users. All right. Not bad. I believe when this happened, they already had like $1 billion valuation. So this is not a company without money. This is a company with more money than you will ever see. All right. So bang. All right. So is this a stupid little mistake? After you take this class, you will say that's a stupid little mistake. Okay, and we'll talk about this kind of mistakes. So this is the kind of attacks that go on, right? Here's another one. Anthem, which is a health insurance company in the US. It was revealed that hackers stole millions of records of customers and employees at the second largest health insurer in the United States. Okay, the hackers obtained names, birthdays, addresses, and social security numbers. There's no sign that they accessed actual medical records in this one, though. The other one, yes, but not this one. Okay, but this is what the key thing I want to tell you. Citing a person familiar with the matter, meaning an employee, the company says that encrypting the data would have made it much more difficult for hackers to access. But it would have also made it harder for the health insurance company to analyze and share their data with other people. What do you think about that? The company saying if we had encrypted it, the hackers would not have been able to get the data. But if we had encrypted it, we couldn't run our data analytics on the data, and we couldn't share this data with other partners and providers. Is that a valid comment? Or can you encrypt data and also do analytics and share the data with other people? Well, wait 16 weeks, you'll find out, okay? No, this is rubbish. This is not true at all. But you know what? In the news, it'll get published like it's fact. You know, like that's the way the world is. That's not the way the world is. They just made that up. Okay. So the company said the company, like other health insurers, thanks for telling us, only encrypts customer data when it's transferred in or out of its database, not when it's on the database. Huh? Is that claim right? Let's see what we do when we make our own system. Okay, so this is the kind of thing we'll be discussing. By the way, good time to ask: have you guys ever been the victim of having your information stolen from a website? Because we're seeing millions, tens of millions, blah blah blah. Anybody here ever noticed that your information has been stolen? Yes, it's happened to you. It's happened to you. Okay, the two only important people in the room. How can you find out? Well, here's a helpful little website. How many of you have ever been to this website? Have I been, okay, you guys know this one. Have I been owned? This is actually Have I Been Owned? This is using the letter P. It's called fat finger typing. It's kind of making a fun of when people type very panically, you might hit the P instead. Because so here, you're welcome to go to this website, Have I Been Owned with a P, okay, .com. You type in your email address. As you can see, I've checked my email addresses recently. Let me check my work one first. Okay, my work email. So far, good news, no ownage found. All right, I'm safe. Let me check my personal one. Personal one. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! 13 different times. I'm like a little smack. So all the different places. I hope this doesn't say too much about me, but this is kind of like social media websites. LinkedIn had 164 million addresses and passwords exposed. I hope you're not using a LinkedIn password anywhere else. All right. This was in 2012. The data remained out of sight. Nobody knew it was stolen until 4 years later when it appeared on the dark markets. Okay. Dropbox. Oh yeah. 68 million records that were stolen and then subsequently traded online. Excellent. Are you checking yours? Dropbox? No? Okay. All right. Last FM. Is this a radio or something like that? Radio music? I can't remember what this is. Music website, yeah. 43 million accounts. All right. Here's not only my email, password, username, but also my website activity. So my musical preferences and stuff like that, all gone. Okay. That's why I've changed my musical preferences. All right. Other places, social media. Oh my God, look at this one. Like literally everything, they took it all. They took it all. Okay. Here's another one. This is great. This is another LinkedIn attack, but it's not. But this is This is interesting. LinkedIn had data on a MongoDB database that was unsecured and unprotected. So they didn't have to go through the website. They just found the database and just stole the whole database. Okay. They're like, oh, thank you. 66 million records right there. Okay. And it's been sold, and it's been scraped by some data aggregator, and it's been used. All right. All right. And more. Okay. I don't even remember half these companies, game developers. Twitter, yes, excellent. 2023, not too long ago. By abusing an API that enabled email addresses to be resolved to Twitter profiles. Okay. So once my email address was out, people were able to, I guess this is probably based on another attack where my email and other things were stolen. They used that to get access to my data on Twitter. All right. And so on and so forth. All right. So not bad, 13 attacks. Okay. But I've been on the internet for a long time, so that makes sense. All right. But just to give you a sense of how common these are. All right. So so let me kind of ask you. Many of you might be in the software role in a company, maybe as a software developer, team lead, product manager. I don't know what you'll be doing. Okay. So what's the software developer's role in security is my question, first of all. Okay. I'm not asking you as a manager, okay, because you're gonna weasel out of it. So you're gonna say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about this stuff. No, let's say you all have software experience. Okay. So here's a scenario. Let's play this game. You found a serious security problem in your company's service. Like maybe there's a MongoDB exposed and 66 million records are sitting on it, including mine. Okay. That could allow outsiders to read your company's data without permission. Okay. You tell your manager about this, but your manager says it doesn't need fixing right now. Okay? It's not a priority. You've got to get this business going. How do you respond to your manager? What do you say? And for those of you who are going to say, oh, I'll tell the manager we have to fix it. What if your manager refuses? Then what would you do? Don't blame me. I'm just a humble developer. It's like I'm just a lowly developer with technical skills. What would you do? I'm curious. Yeah, please. You attack the Batman over here. Okay. Look at her. She gets in a lot of fights. You can tell. Wait. Did you say you will personally attack? Oh, brilliant! I like this.
And then also the issues in lacking the money.
Hey, can we team up? I have a better idea. We're gonna pretend it's a ransomware attack, and we'll get the money ourselves, and then you can go to your boss. Okay, 2 for 1. All right. Great. Any other comments? I like your ideas. It's been stolen. It's on the dark net. What should we do? Any other thoughts? What do you think? Well, how many of you are leaning towards saying it's not really my problem? Management material right here. I'm kidding. I'm joking. How many of you say it's my problem, but I'm not to blame if something happens? Reasonable. How many of you are like, I'm agnostic, I don't believe in anything? I have no. What do you think? Thank you for the sharp opinion. I like that. Any other hard takes on it? Like a side job. You're sitting in the wrong build. This is a management school. Boo! I'm joking. So you're saying take it on as a personal responsibility.
Yes.
No, you literally said it's a side job, so it's not your job. So you're responsible for it, but you're not being paid for it. Then you're not responsible for it, right? What if your boss says, "Hey, did you finish this thing?" And you're like, no, I was doing a side job of fixing this problem you told me I don't have to worry about." They would say, "Well, if I knew you were using your personal time, I would have given you real work to do." You know. How would you address? No, I love this. How would you build a case? You mean in your company it's happened before, right? I mean, if it or it happened somewhere else, okay, sure, you could go use one of these stories and be like, "Hey, do you want to be this company or this company or this company? You get to pick, A, B, or C," right? So that could be a great one, right? And your manager says, "Okay, that sounds serious, but don't worry about it for now." And then you call her and you're like, "Batman, I need your help." Okay. So so I just want to discuss these with you because, the reason this happened to all these companies is not because they didn't know what they're doing. All right. Some of these, like I said, have billion-dollar valuations. They know what they're doing. They also know what they're not doing. All right. So so, and let me ask you this. Okay, so something happens, so it gets stolen. Then what? Is it really a big deal? Because if something happens that affects your company, it doesn't affect you because nobody can blame you, right? It's not your problem. Then what could happen? What's the worst case scenario here? I'll give you one bad case scenario. Your company goes out of business and you've lost your job that you were anyway trying to protect. So you haven't even saved your job. All right, that's one bad case scenario. A good case scenario is nothing ever happens, ever, which has never happened ever. All right, something will happen. Or a good case scenario is you go to another job and anyway you leave this company and it never affects you again. That's a good case scenario. So what's your exit plan from this potential tragedy is my question. Could something happen that's worse than losing money? You get sued, that's losing money. Yeah, you could get sued, but not you personally. Nobody's going to sue the developer. Are they? Probably not. You can say my manager is to blame. Managers say my manager is to blame, and that manager will say, "Oh, so sorry, but what was the thing here? Yeah, encrypting the data would make it motive." They'll read their playbook. Okay. Yeah, but you could get sued. What else? Some people might die. You don't know what medication they're supposed to get. Okay. Is that a risk worth taking? Maybe just a few people will die, huh? They were gonna die anyway. We're all gonna die. Okay. So let me go to my next story. This is from Finland. Okay, just to show you that attackers respect no boundaries. Okay. This is an attacker in Finland. So Vastamo was a startup that ran the largest network of private mental health providers in Finland. Okay. In a country of just 5 million people, it's a small country. It was the McDonald's of psychotherapy. All right. And what happened is that 30,000 people are believed to have received a ransom message. Good for Finland. 25,000 reported to the police. Basically, so I'll tell you how it got into the news. Patients at these clinics, right? They started receiving ransom messages saying, "I know everything you've been telling your therapist, everything. So you pay me, otherwise I'll make it public." Okay. Let's dig into it a little bit. What happened? They had a very fancy website, okay? Slick exterior, something every student is really good at doing. Slick website, okay? Beautiful website, but it concealed deep vulnerabilities, all right? They violated one of the first principles of cybersecurity. They didn't anonymize their records, okay? So if you get into the database, you know who is who because it's just relational data pointing to tables, okay? It didn't encrypt the data, okay? The only thing protecting patients' confessions and confidences were a couple of firewalls and a server login screen. So somebody had said, yep, firewalls, we're done. Okay. Which is partly why this class is not a network security class. Why we want to get into software security, because firewalls are not enough. Okay. Anyone with experience in the field could have helped Vastamo design a safer system. Okay. All right. But here's what actually happened. You see, in Finland, I'm going to just recap it for you. In Finland, they do have a data protection laws, and companies can declare which approach they will take to securing privacy. There is a Class A and a Class B approach. Class A, I believe, is a much more rigorous approach, and you should have a fair amount of security knowledge to do it. But for small companies, they can say, we're a Class B. We don't have the resources to do this. Okay, so this company decided we're Class B. All right, at least in the beginning, they could claim they were Class B. They grew out of Class B, but okay, but in the beginning, they said, we're Class B. We don't have resources. We don't have to do this. Okay. So they registered with the Class B system. They were eager to upgrade, all right, as soon as the government released formatting specs for psychotherapy, but that didn't happen. Instead, when the specs came out, they kept going with the Class B. So this is a story of not a first priority. Okay, it was not a first priority. And the problem with not first priorities is they never become priorities. All right, when you say something is not important, it'll never become important. All right, and that's what happened to them. They started by saying, we're small, we don't need it. We're waiting for the government to release specs. And by the time the government releases the spec, they're like, now we got a whole big business going. We're too busy now. All right, so they didn't do it either. All right. What's the ramifications? What's the big deal? This is the public harm. By the way, the hackers first contacted the CEO and said, I got all your data. What did the CEO do? Nothing. The CEO did nothing. In fact, I don't have the full things here, but their developers were actually told to go in and delete the emails from the hackers to remove any evidence that they were told about this problem. All right. So they actually deleted any evidence that they were made aware of this problem. And they just said, let's pretend nothing happened. Then the hackers got really frustrated and they said, and they tried contacting the company again and again. And then they emailed the customers and said, we've tried to contact the company. They're not replying. So now we got your data. You are going to pay us. Okay. Because the company won't pay us. You're going to pay us. So they followed through on that promise. They leaked 100 patient records at a time. Okay. Belonged to politicians, public figures, people in cheating on their spouses, people who had attempted suicide, people with other crazy thoughts. Okay. And eventually they leaked everything eventually. All right. What's the ramifications? When you do this kind of thing to people with these kind of issues, I can promise you some people will not be able to take the load, the pressure. Okay. I don't want to get into what that means, but it means some people just cannot take the pressure. Right. So when you say something is not a priority, when you say it's not important right now, when you say not my problem, it's true, it's not your problem, but this is the result of not your problem. This is the result of I wasn't paid to do it, so I didn't do it. All right. I'll say one of the better stories, not better, but one of the less, craziest things that happened is, customers came out saying, I made a mistake by being honest about my mental health to other people. That was a mistake. I should not have told other people about my mental health issues, and they say, now I'm worried about identity theft. I'm afraid of some debt collection company calling me and asking for money. And he says, this is one person saying, I have a history of teenage alcoholism. If this gets out, then, companies won't hire me. People won't hire me, and this is my family may read it, and this is going to follow me for the rest of my life. It's on the internet. It's never going to go away. Right. So my point here being, this used to be a pure management course many, many years ago, like 14 years ago, when I started teaching this course. This was a pure management course. The reason I kind of made it a technical software development course is so that students couldn't come out of here and say, I know all that, I'm very concerned, but I don't know what to do about it. All right. My goal to make this class a technical course is so that students coming out of this say, I know what to do about it. If I don't do anything about it, well, that's on you. You have the power now. I want to empower you. If you don't want to use your power, it is kind of your responsibility. So taking the class is it's a boon, but it's also it's a blessing, but it's also a curse upon you. Okay, you will have the knowledge to know what to do about all this. All right. And I'll say more about this towards the end of the semester. I hope this class gives you the tools to fix these kind of problems, and also um, to talk rationally with managers, like you said, to make a case to say, look, these are the things that happen to people who don't take these things. If you want to do something about it, it's not some crazy brain surgery you're thinking about. These are the simple procedures we have to do to secure it. However, it does require a change in mindset at a company. Okay, and that's one of the things I'm hoping to trigger through using this class, is that you guys go out in companies and you help kind of instill that mind change that security is not a second-class citizen. It is something we start doing from day one. Okay. My favorite analogy of this is, in the late 1970s, 1980s, long before internet, right? Japan became like the leading car manufacturer in the world, right? They overtook all these U.S. companies and everything, and the way they did it was through quality. They revolutionized the world of quality. They brought this idea of how to manufacture with high quality. Okay, it's not that American companies or European companies did not know what quality looks like. They know what a quality car looks like, but their approach to quality was different. They were designing cars, manufacturing cars, and then saying, okay, what's wrong? How do we fix it? And the Japanese were doing something that nobody had ever done before, which is they said, before we touch anything, how do we make high quality, right? And they said, everything we do is high quality. From the moment we touch pen on paper, quality is part of our story, all right? And we never, it's at every step of the way. Every employee is a quality personnel. There's nobody here who's not quality person. It's not like there's a quality office over there and the rest of us are doing our job. Everyone is a quality person. Everyone is responsible for quality. The Japanese were even doing things like, they would give employees like opportunities to say, okay, leave your machine, sit around a table, sit on a round table. These are factory employees. Talk about what we're doing wrong. Talk to each other. Tell, you know what we're doing wrong. You know better than anybody in the company because you're doing it. So what do you think we could be doing better, right? And employees would like bring these ideas out, and so everyone was responsible for quality. It took the rest of the world like 20 years to catch up to Japan in terms of quality. And in the end, we just basically had to copy what they were doing. There was just no other way around it. I know this because I did an industrial engineering master's degree, and I called it a Japanese degree because like every single term was Japanese because we had to borrow every concept from Japan to do high quality work. Okay, so the same thing is true with security. There's no tomorrow in security. Like you have to design it from today. You can do it tomorrow, but you're going to pay a much higher price to do it tomorrow. Okay, and if something goes wrong, you're going to pay an enormous price. All right, so that's the role of the developer to me, is that you are the first line of defense, not the last line of defense for customers. You are the first line of defense because you are the one who sees what the system is made of, what the sausage is made of. Okay, so you know what can be fixed, hopefully, and so that's why I'm not teaching managers, because they'll say, sounds great, I'm scared, I don't know what to do. I'm teaching developers, so you come out and say, I know what to do. But now we have to slowly build the case. Okay, so let's take the semester to do that. All right. Okay, so that's my little motivation for why we're having a class on security, why it's in a management school, but yet why it's a technical course. All right, good. Anything else I want to talk about? Okay, so briefly, I know I'm supposed to spend most of today talking about the topics of the class. We're going to spend 16 weeks on it. Okay, so I'll give you an overview of the topics of the class, and we have plenty of time to learn everything. So the class is going to introduce you to starting with basic concepts of cryptography, because cryptography is going to be one of our major tools to address those 6 dimensions we talked about before. Okay, you'll be surprised by how much you can do with cryptography. It's a modern weapon, which 100 years ago we could not imagine the what cryptography can do today. It was unimaginable. So you're the second or third generation of humans who are aware of this new technology, and it comes from mathematical principles of information theory, and we'll introduce them to you. Now, this is not a cryptography course, however, so I'm not going to go into like the math fundamentals, but I'm going to give you more than a simple hands-on feeling for what are the issues involved with cryptography. Okay, and we're going to see how that's used, how information is digitized in binary form, what entropy means for information, and how that is used to implement different forms of cryptography, symmetric key, public or asymmetric key cryptography, and cryptographic hashing. All right. And we're going to be learning it not from a computer sciencey point of view of this is how the algorithm works. For some of the algorithms, we are going to dig into how they work. But I want to show you that there's so many ways of doing each of these things, and they are each for a different purpose. Okay, so we want to talk about what are the purpose for different types of cryptography, of different types of hashing algorithms. What are the purposes for each of them? Because each of them has an application. And if you use the wrong algorithm for the wrong application, you've probably done nothing to secure yourself, even though you may say, but I hashed this, I encrypted this, but you actually did nothing. That cannot be undone immediately and quickly. All right. And I'll share with you stories of very high experts making mistakes with algorithms. And I'm talking about people who develop basic protocols used around the internet, of the kind of mistakes they have made when they just didn't understand what algorithm is for what and why they made this mistake, and how we can prevent ourselves from making those mistakes without becoming cryptography experts, without becoming mathematicians. How can we possibly understand all of this and make sense of it? There is a way. Okay. We'll talk about all of that. We'll talk about how to then use cryptography to, do data integrity and confidentiality, meaning to make sure that your data is not altered without you knowing. Like if there's data in your database, you should know that it's been touched and changed, not just because of a timestamp, but you should be able to look at the data and know somebody has played with this. How? Okay. How to harden databases and how to secure communications using these technologies. Okay. We'll talk about authentication and authorization. So these use cryptography to create like cryptographic tokens. So we'll talk about that this semester. And then we'll talk about authorization, which is about who can do what. Here, however, authorization, we're going to move away from cryptography to talking about security policies. How do you encode security policies? Like what are your policies and how do you write them in code? Where do you put them in your system? All right, and how do you manage your policies as code? This is not a legal class, so I'm not going to be telling you the legal definitions of policy. We're talking about the coding aspects of policy. How do you take a legal policy and make it code such that you can round trip it? If somebody says, does this match our legal policy? You can put them side by side and say, yep, look. How can you do that? Okay, because that's important, right? If a manager comes to you and says, hey, somebody said that they got into somebody else's account and was able to do blah, blah, blah. Is that true? How do you tell your manager what your policies are on authorizations are in your system? Do they have to know how to read code, right? So there is a way to write code to make it look like a legal policy, and we'll talk about that a little bit, okay? And we'll talk a little bit about experience and user experience and performance. Not so much, it's not the main purpose of the course, but these are the main topics of the course, all right? And this is all about how to create a system that uses cryptographic and architectural patterns to create secure systems, all right? We're not talking about networking, so we're not talking about how to set up a firewall. We're talking about what do you do as a software developer. Let's see. So let me see how many slides of this I have. Okay, let me do a couple more. A big part of our question, now at a more philosophical level, okay, is ultimately we're trying to protect users. And that's who we're trying to protect, is our users of our system. But who are they? Where does the user go in our architecture? Some of you how many of you have taken my architecture course in the previous semester? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so some of you have taken my architecture course. You remember from my architecture course, I did not cover this. I said, do not model a user, save that for the security course. So that's what we're doing right now, okay? Where do your users go in your system? Meaning, Is there code that is specifically for the user? Because that's who you're trying to protect, right? Where does that code go? What does it look like? How do we keep track of what they're doing, their sessions? How do we store their data? And how do we enforce policies about users? So we're going to be talking all about these humans, these pesky humans who keep using our system, and how we protect them, and how we model them, and how we how we kind of concretize who they are in our system as code. Okay, so that's one big concept, is human users. The other is about trust. You'll see over the semester that actually security is just another word for trust in many ways. Okay, and everything when we talk about authentication and authorization, it's all about trust. How do we know we can trust this user? Just because they have a username and a password? How do we know what they're allowed to do? How do we trust them? So, and beyond that, how do we transfer the notion of trust? Okay, so for example, you have authenticated yourself with this machine. Okay, now this machine has to ask another machine saying, hey, this user is asking for this, so can you give it to me? How does that second machine know that the machine it's talking, who's asking it, is actually a machine in its system? It could be any machine talking to me. How do I know that machine is to be trusted? Right? Am I going to like hard code everyone's IP address? Right? No, you're not going to do that. How do I know that a machine, how does a machine know that another machine talking to it can be trusted with user data? Right? Who told that machine they're allowed to do it? How do I know that machine who's talking to this machine? How do I know that machine was authorized to do it by the user? Right? Who gave it permission? Should I, maybe, do I not care? Do I just say, I'm a machine, I don't care? No, actually, you'll see that one of the things we'll discuss this semester is that our idea of what systems are has changed dramatically over the years. There was a time when we treated software systems like a castle, right? Like nobody should enter the castle who's not authorized. Like, you know what I mean by a castle? A fort? Okay, so a protected building. Like nobody can enter the building if they're not authorized. But we've realized in the decades that's impossible. Okay, everyone will get in. Your database will be taken from you. Sorry, not if, when. Okay, so the new model of security is think of a system like a city. You cannot stop somebody from coming in and out of the city, but once they're in the city, how can you prevent them from doing something bad? All right. So we'll talk about how do the machines in our system trust each other? All right. So that's an even more fundamental question. And then we'll see how these two things are fundamentally tied together. Who the humans are, how the machines recognize them, and how other machines recognize valid machines. It's actually the same problem. And there's a way to transfer trust across machines and say, I'm going to present to you irrefutable evidence that I am trusted by the user. So you can do this for me. Okay. So we'll talk about that over the semester. Ultimately, again, for my architecture fans, this architecture should look familiar to you. It's the basic, simple architecture that I think most small, medium-sized companies and even larger would be using. We're going to develop a system. You're going to work in teams. You're going to develop systems, which are basically web applications with a backend API. So you'll be developing both of these, okay? A backend API and a web application. That's going to be database driven. All right. And that's going to be also be able to, not able to, but you will be, yeah, we'll be able to kind of talk to other systems and present stuff on a browser, incorporate like email verification, incorporate content distribution networks, and yet all of these should work together and trust each other. So we're going to talk about how to develop a system that looks like this. Okay. I'm not going to go into all the small things in here, but all these small things in here are stuff we're going to talk about as the semester unfolds slowly. All right. Okay. Okay. I'm going to take a pause right here. We're going to take a little break. If you think the class is for you, welcome back. Okay. If you think the class is not for you, good time to escape. All right. Just a quick reminder, this is a software development course, so we will be writing code this semester, not in a language of your choosing, but in a language of my choosing, okay? So there's going to be a little bit of challenges here. I'll say more about that after the break. Why don't we take like a 7-8 minute break, and we're going to get going around 10:15, okay? So be back here by 10:15, and I'm going to start speaking whether you're here or not.